Imagine someone comes up to you with a camera and a microphone and asks, how much money do you make? What would you say? Also, imagine a world where you actually knew how much money everyone in the world made. Well, these aren't hypotheticals because we're talking to Hannah Williams, founder of Salary Transparent Street, who actually does just this. Let's get into it. Okay, Hannah.
Hi.
We are so excited, one, to have you in the studio. I feel like we're in front of a celebrity, legitimately. So for those that don't know who you are, they've obviously been living under a rock, but tell us, like, what you do and the motions of Salary Transparent Street.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting. I'm a big fan of Morning Brew and HR Brew, like all the things that you do. So I feel like I'm in the presence of celebrities. But yeah, if you've seen me on your screen, on your phone, I'm that girl who asks strangers what they do for a living and how much they make. That's basically the gist of what we do. But there's a big mission behind what we do, a big motivation from finding out I was underpaid and wanting to help others learn and earn more. And so we offer them a bunch of free resources that I'm sure we'll get into. But really, we're just here to help workers understand what their worth is and advocate for themselves.
So if
I love it.
Yeah, amazing. Also, thank you for coming. Can you dive into that first time you realized you were underpaid? How did that process go?
Yeah, so it's not like the cool story of seeing, my colleague's paycheck, and like, oh, what the heck? It was kind of a boring story. But during the COVID, the pandemic, I got a job as a senior data analyst. I was making $90,000 a year. I was like 23, 24 years old at the time, more money than I ever thought I'd be making. So my first mistake was there. I didn't do market research to learn what the role was worth, and I didn't negotiate. I was like, sign me up. Like, when do I start? A couple months into the role, it just shifted wildly. Like, they changed all my job description. Like, I had another colleague, they fired him. I took on all his responsibilities. They didn't give me a raise. So a couple months into it, I was getting burnt out. I was starting to realize, like, wait, my skills are worth a lot more because I keep getting DMs from recruiters on LinkedIn and such. Yep. And long story short, I found out that my role was worth about $110,000 to $125,000.
Oh my gosh.
Way more than I was making. And when I brought that to my manager, they were like, well, you just started. Like, you can't ask for a $20,000 raise. Like, you're going to have to wait. And so I started looking for another job. And in my first interview with a recruiter, and I'm at my lowest low, I'm like, I am stuck. What am I going to do? They asked me, what are your salary requirements? And I was like, screw this. This system is rigged. Like, how am I supposed to guess what your budget is? So I asked them, what's your budget? Like, do you mind sharing it with me? I was like, I have nothing to lose. I'm stuck in this position anyway. And I give this recruiter a lot of credit because she didn't skip a beat. And she told me the budget was $115K. And I was like, that is exactly what I'm looking for.
You're like, crazy. That was exactly my number. Look at that.
Exactly. And I was going to ask for 105, which really showed another value of transparency is like, even when you know that you're worth that, it's scary to ask for it. You don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to get an offer rescinded because you asked for too much. Mm-hmm. So just having that upfront transparency changed the game for me. I accepted a job offer working with them a couple weeks later. I feel kind of bad because I ended up quitting a couple months after that. And they were a great company. They took great care of me, but I couldn't shake what happened. I was like, this system is broken. And like, I fixed my situation, but everybody else is still dealing with the same thing. How can I help? And I just had this crazy idea. I kept seeing transparency was taking off on TikTok. People were talking about how much they made. I made a video about how much I made. I had like no followers. It got 1 million views. And I was like, light bulb, this is what people need. Yeah. And so I got my husband, I was like, coaxed him out with some coffee. I was like, look, this is a good idea. Let's go try it. We had no expectations, but it went mega viral. Like, filmed the video same day we posted it, 0 followers, 0 videos, brand new page. When we woke up the next morning, we had like 50,000 followers.
That's insane.
Yeah, first video going like viral.
That's an indication you're doing something right.
Yeah.
100%.
Or something very wrong.
That too.
We're not sure. I love the story of like your first job because I think that's like a universal feeling because at least for me, like no one ever told me how to negotiate in college and high school. So you get in and you just don't know the rules of the game. And you can get into this position where it feels like it's a game of chicken. Like, I can't tell you how much I want to make if it's a recruiter. Recruiters typically don't want to tell you what the budget is.
Right.
And so you're just like in this standoff, and it's a very weird position to be in. I remember one of my first jobs, I did AmeriCorps as my like first
cool.
job. So I was making like 12K.
Yeah.
So I had literally no idea like what people made. And I had my first negotiation and they asked how much I wanted. And I was like, I'm going to triple my salary. So I said like 35K. And they were like, we legally can't pay you that little.
That little.
So they like bumped me up to like around 40. And I was like, okay, I'm definitely doing negotiation wrong if I'm coming in like illegal levels. So like, it is just really interesting. I think there's a massive gap, particularly for people early in their career. They just don't know what they're worth and how to approach that whole ordeal.
Also, I think that it's been shown time and time again that the starting salary that you have earlier in your career has extreme impact on 10, 15, 20 years down the road. If you ask for $3,000 or $4,000 more at your first job, that could lead to literally hundreds of thousands of dollars over your career.
Yeah.
And so I think it's something that, for me, I heard you have to negotiate. And I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, that's scary.
Scary.
So I didn't for my first job. My second job, I was like, I'm so sorry, but if it's possible, could I maybe ask for $5,000 more dollars? Like, I'm taking a pay cut. Like,
If it's not too much of a burden for you,
yeah, and
please.
then they came back and they were like, all right, we can do 3. And what's interesting, not to like totally derail with a random conversation, but what's interesting is when they did that, I was the lowest on the team. And because I had advocated for myself and I got a $3,000 raise,
I know where this is going.
they changed the salaries of the other 2 people on the team, the other 2 editors, and they upped it by $3,000.
Yep.
So they were still making more because they were more senior. And so that was like amazing. I actually only found that out a year later because I got drunk with one of my coworkers and asked them how much money they made.
Love
I
it.
was like, this is amazing.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah, that's the major takeaway of this episode. Get drunk with your coworkers. It all works out.
I'll be down the street.
Hannah, you said one thing I want to touch on, which is you went to your first manager and you were like, I'm underpaid and I'm underpaid by like $20,000. Like, please bump it up. And they basically said, you can't ask for $20,000 more. Like, kind of a pet peeve of mine. Like, yes, you can. Like, why? It feels like once, to Kaila, your point, once you get locked into this first salary, they don't want to like let you move up high. And oftentimes it like forces people to leave for another job when you're very talented. Like, the company should have tried to keep you. That whole system seems very broken to me.
Yeah, and the gag of it is what they don't realize, what they will in hindsight, is when that employee, like when I left, they had to hire somebody at a higher rate than they hired me to replace me. So it's more expensive to not pay people that are already working for you. You know, show them that you care and pay them what they're worth, because it's going to bite you in the butt when they leave.
Yeah, it seems like a self-inflicted problem there. So I have a question about the actual interviews you do on the street. Are most people willing to tell you what they make? Because if someone just randomly came up to me and was like, how much money do you make? I wouldn't tell them. What's your experience like with actual people out in the world?
It's changed a lot. When we first started, I'd say in our first year, we would look at it like a success rate, like how many people do we have to ask to get one. New York City, I'm not going to lie, was our least favorite place to go because we had the lowest success rate here.
I believe it.
A lot of people invest who are like, I cannot tell you.
100%. Yeah. I got my feelings hurt so bad.
Oh, no.
It was bad. But it looked like 10 people to get one to say yes.
Okay.
So sometimes it would take a long time. Like, what people don't see is it can take hours out there of asking people and getting shot down over and over again, sometimes in the rudest ways. And you just have to keep going. Like, you can feel a little sorry for me.
Wow.
But,
I definitely do. Well, it's interesting because I think saying that New York was probably the hardest one makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's such a cultural thing to not discuss how much money you make. And we were just talking about this a little earlier, like, I'm so comfortable talking about my salary with the specific people that I have deemed like okay to know. But like, if I walked past you on the street, I don't know that I would stop and respond. In fact, I do know I wouldn't. You know, like, because it's really scary and it's intense. And I think like half of my mind is like, oh my gosh, like, I'm making so much money. And half of my mind is like, oh my gosh, people are going to think like she's, you know, not making money any money at all for where she is. Like, so I think it's really interesting that we culturally are so associating our worth with how much money we make.
Yeah.
And also the fact that we keep it secret makes it feel like it's this like
big taboo.
Big taboo. If somebody finds out, they're going to like know this dark secret of mine and how I view myself and all this.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. And I get that all the time. People will recognize us now. So our success rate has gone up, I think,
That's great.
because we
Yeah.
get recognized a lot more. So they're less like, oh, she's like a stranger. They're like, no, okay, I know what this is. So that has helped a lot, but it's still taboo. And there's still valid reasons for people not wanting to share. I tell people all the time when they're like, I don't know, I'm unsure. If you hesitate at all, I probably won't even bother interviewing you, because more often than not, those people will go on to cancel. So I'm like, let's just not waste the time.
Yeah.
But there's so many valid reasons to not want to be transparent on a platform like ours. I mean, you're telling your salary to 3 million people. You're going to be judged. There's going to be harsh comments possibly. But realistically also, if you're looking for a new job, if you're in the midst of a salary negotiation, you don't want to be telling, the internet how much you make, because that could harm you in your salary negotiation. So if you're looking for a job, you don't have to talk to me, but that's why we built our anonymous salary database to fill that gap. So if you don't want to be on camera, if you don't want to show up, if you don't want to say you're paid to 3 million people, understandable, you can say it anonymously in our database.
Which I want to talk about the database a little later, but this is a really interesting point you're bringing up to me. Like, admittedly, one of my personal fears of interviewing you, last night I was like, I couldn't sleep because I was like, if Hannah Williams asked me how much I make on the podcast, I don't think I would be comfortable saying. But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, am I doing something wrong? Like, in order for the transparency to help everyone, you almost have to opt in and share your own salary to give people that information. So like, am I wrong to want to keep that private? Like, what are your thoughts on that as you've, really explored this space?
Yeah, the first thought that comes to mind that I do want to point out is I kind of target white men in particular, because y'all are the highest paid statistically. So if we wanted to set a bar, for pay, I want to target the people who make the most, because the goal is to help people understand what they can be making. So the sad part is I actually get more transparency often for more diverse communities. And I think why that is because those individuals have had experience being underpaid, or more experiences knowing, a colleague who was in a situation like that. So they always have something to share and a value for why they want to be transparent. But, there are valid reasons for not wanting to share it. I think it's always something to have a little bit of introspection about, why are you nervous? And everybody has their reasons.
Yeah. It's really good. Honestly, it's made me very self-reflective of like, should I be more forthcoming with this for all the reasons you've listed? And so even the conversations you're starting with this channel, I think are really, really powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah, 100% agree.
That means a lot.
It's amazing. And it's so fun to watch, because it's like, even if you're just scrolling through and it feels like kind of like entertainment, it's like very valuable data points that you're gathering. And I will say, Kyle, for you, like, I have the same like hesitation, even though I'm probably more pro transparency even than you. I'm still like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I'm comfortable sharing. That being said, I think there's a benefit to individual data points, but there's also a benefit to the aggregate. And so I think the database is so cool, because it's like, there's going to be various factors that factor into every single person's salary, but there are true trends that you can gather when you add them all up. You see what industries, you see what levels of seniority, and then you actually can gauge, this is the low level, this is the high level. I'm getting promoted now, and therefore I think I should maybe be in middle or low level of director. And you have that information. You can come armed with data.
Yeah.
And that is so much more impactful than being like, well, my friend at another company makes this, and my last salary was this, so I'm going to ask for a 10% raise. Like, it's like, you need to understand your worth, and I think that's so great what you're doing with it.
Yeah, thank you. The goal was to help people with their market research, right? And one thing I would say, if you're hesitating to be transparent about pay, one thing I tell people is, think less about yourself and think about your colleagues and others in the company. Because like we mentioned earlier, I think we had a conversation about one of your friends found out about, you were talking about your pay, and or you were talking about your pay, and that helped your colleagues down the road get pay raises as well. So being transparent is not always like about us. It's about, let's make an equitable workplace. And if we think that there's something falling, on the wayside, how can we fix it?
Yeah, me and Kaila literally had that happen early in our careers at Morning Brew, where like that did happen to us, and it helped us like make more money.
There you go.
It was actually crazy, and we talked about this. It was should you talk about salary with your coworkers was our first ever
One of them.
podcast.
Full circle.
Crazy. And we talked about this story there. So it was just one of those situations where we were able to compare and saw that there was like a differential and we were able to advocate and like rectify it.
Yeah, it's a perfect example that like what you're saying actually does move the needle significantly.
And we'll be right back after this. Okay, back to the show.
You were also interviewed by HR Brew maybe like a year ago or so.
Way back when.
Yeah, way back
I tried
when.
working here at one point when I was a data analyst.
All right.
Yeah.
Who was hiring?
Yeah,
How did we miss
sorry.
this? What the?
I could have been a data analyst. It would have been a whole different story.
You would have found your way down to like the third floor with the creators, and like you would have found a path anyway.
Or
down.
you would have left after 3 months.
right.
Start the same thing.
So maybe it was a good
bad. Yeah.
But I want to talk about something you said in the HR Brew interview that I thought was really interesting. And you were saying that you talk to people in HR and you found that they actually are more in favor of transparency. That was like surprising to me because I don't have a negative perception of HR. It just feels like the company benefits when there's less transparency. HR is there to protect the company. I don't think I'm saying anything too spicy there. So like, why do you think that it actually does benefit HR divisions or companies to have transparency?
Two things. One, HR, they're still people, even though
True.
they're the protection of the company. They still want to be fairly paid as well. And they get to see everybody's paychecks. So they have that inside scoop. So when I talk to HR directors or people that work in HR and they're like, I love what you do. I'm like, yeah, you've got issues in your company. I can smell it. Second thing is legal protection. You know, they're looking out for the company. And in this landscape right now, there's a lot of pay transparency laws that are passing in different states. And just because you don't work in that state doesn't mean that your employees might not be affected by that state's law if they have a remote work policy. So it's protection for the company. They're trying to get ahead of it. But what we're seeing with leadership and CEOs, they really don't like pay transparency. And so they're probably going to get into some legal trouble here, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned these pay transparency laws, and I know we've done a lot of funny videos about them because there was like this, you know, I think it was like Citibank and would be like, our salary range is $1 to 10 million.
I think it was 0 to 2 million.
Yeah,
it was insane.
It was absurd. So clearly, like, there's still some tension from companies who even are, maybe they're complying technically, but they don't want the transparency you're bringing up. Let's talk about negotiation now. When me and Kaila sat down and were like, what do we really want our listeners to get out of this episode? It was like, okay, you have the information. How do you go about leveraging that information to make more money, to make it more equitable? So like, talk us through negotiation tactics. Someone goes to your database, they're armed with information. What should their next few steps be?
Okay, so here's what you do. You're going to write all your information, all your market research in a letter, an actual physical letter, because you need proof to bring to a meeting with your manager. That's the second thing you do. Make a meeting with your manager, bring all your market research in this letter. In the letter, have all your market research, list all your sources, but also talk about why you deserve the raise. You know, you can't just point to data. You got to point to data within the company. You know, why do you deserve the raise? What's in it for them? You know, it goes both ways. When you have the meeting with your manager and tell them that you want to talk about your pay, you don't want to spring it on them, you know, like, hey, can we have a random meeting, you know, and then let's talk about pay. Tell them what the expectation is because they need to prepare as well, you know, and come prepped with whatever talking points they need. Once you have that conversation, walk through the letter step by step, bring a copy for yourself, bring a copy for your manager. I like this because sometimes I get nervous doing salary negotiations, and this is something that you can point to, you can look to, it helps guide you, you know, so you don't lose your I don't know, your braveness, your courageousness in the conversation. And then make your ask, you know, make it very clear. It's often going to take a couple weeks for your manager to go back, you know, and talk to management and figure out the logistics, but don't let up on them. You want to follow up every week. What's the update? What is, you know, what's happening? When can I get the raise? What's the status? And if they don't come back to you with a solid answer and you know that you're worth it, you should start interviewing elsewhere. And I would tell people constantly be interviewing. It's also the best way to get comfortable with salary negotiations because if you're negotiating for a job that you're not fully set on, you know, you're like, if I get it, you know, it doesn't really matter. It makes it so much easier to negotiate without all the pressure, and you're gonna get better at it over time. So always be interviewing, always take the call, and just improve your skills over time.
Love that. I think that's amazing. One of the things that you just mentioned that I'd love your thoughts are getting an outside offer as a part of that intro negotiation. Do you think that that's like forcing their hand and makes it more likely that you'll get the raise that you want?
So using an outside offer to try to get one internally. I've done that before. I'll tell you how it worked out for me. So when I was a data analyst, one of my jobs, I kept getting recruiters in my DMs and I was interviewing. I was getting better at it. And one of the offers that they made me, I think, was 75 and I was making 55 at the time. And I liked my job. Like, I wanted to stay there. I liked my manager. And so that's why I was like, let me bring this offer to them because I'd like more pay, but I don't want to leave. And it was risky. I didn't know if they were going to say, well, go with them if you're looking already. And my manager was really understanding, and they actually did give me a raise. I went from 55,000 to 62,500. So I got a nice little raise. I actually ended up still leaving a couple months later. And so what I would say in that instance is if you really like the company, I think it's worth it to take the risk and bring the competing offer. But at the end of the day, if you're already looking at competing offers, I think the writing's on the wall, and in the future, you're probably still going to leave.
I love the tactics you just outlined there, like with print off 2 copies. Like, we typically try to end episodes with tactics, and you just absolutely nailed it. Like, I was like, I got to be taking notes too on this. This is very smart. And
Where's the CEO?
the point about like figuring out your market value by always interviewing, I think is just so important. And I've also seen that benefit me in my own career, where me and Kaila have gotten promoted a few times at Morning Brew. We've gotten new jobs, and the recent job, they were basically like, why are you asking for how much you're asking? And I was like, because I was looking, because our business unit got shut down. There's a whole other story.
It's a lot.
And so I was like, I know that's what I can make. And then they were like, okay. Like, it just kind of ends the conversation, because they can't be like, well, the market doesn't really think you're worth that. It's like, it does. It moves the ball forward so well.
You keep your finger on the pulse. Yeah.
Yeah, which I really like. And I do agree that it's really enticing, and it could be quote unquote dangerous for you to get an offer somewhere else and then with the sole purpose of bringing it to your existing company. I think you have to, like, if you're going to bring that, my personal opinion is you have to be willing to walk. Like, you can't 100%. Be bluffing. And I think that in your situation, what's really interesting is that you had the higher offer and you ended up staying with the smaller raise, which is great, especially if you love the company. I was in a situation where I left my previous employer for Morning Brew. I was very excited about the Morning Brew role, and I let them know that I was leaving. I was devastated. I actually cried in my bye conversation. I was very, very sad, and they were like, well, we're going to see what we can do and see if we can match it. And I was really stressed out, because I was like, if they can match absolutely everything, then I don't think I can justify leaving.
Yeah.
And so I'm really glad that they didn't.
Yeah, thank God.
Right?
You wouldn't have a podcast, Kaila.
Exactly. Go both ways. It's almost like they'll make you walk or you're forced to walk.
Yeah. And so I'm really glad that happened for me. But I think if I hadn't been as excited about the Morning Brew offer, or if I wasn't prepared to leave my previous employer, I would have been really disappointed by what they came back with, because I knew that I could go somewhere else and get that type of, I was a manager and I had a significant pay raise. And so I was really happy how it worked out. Yeah. But it was definitely it's a scary situation.
Definitely. Oh my gosh. Talking about pay, careers.
Yeah.
I always talk about we go to college to learn, quote unquote, learn all the things we need for our careers, but we never learn the things you need to know for your career. Salary negotiation, market research, how to advocate for yourself, laws in the workplace. Those are such important things. So when people tell me they're scary, I don't know how to do it. None of us do. We're all learning. So we need to give ourselves some grace.
100%. I mean, it points to a gap in the market that you're clearly filling, which is supplying people with this very important information. I think I want to move into a game.
Okay.
So we have a very fun game that we want to end with, which is you're going to talk to us about some people you've interviewed, and I believe me and Kaila are going to guess what their salary is.
This is going to be fun and probably brutal. I'm not looking forward to what the show's about us.
Yeah. So
it's going to be interesting. I'm curious to hear your responses.
I'm very excited. So Hannah, when you're ready, take it away, and me and Kaila will embarrass ourselves.
Great.
Okay, so the first interview that I thought would be so interesting to have y'all guess is a water vendor who has sold waters outside the White House for 15 years.
Oh,
whoa.
Okay. So not to plug our own company, but our video creator Macy actually did this with a hot dog vendor.
I saw that video.
And the video is
I have a hot dog stand owner right after
Oh,
this.
no way, that's amazing.
So I should know.
So we'll know.
But I don't think I do,
I think I
unfortunately.
remember. We'll see.
Water vendor
Is this
outside.
annual salary?
He gave me how much he makes a week, and then I converted it to like a guess for roughly monthly.
Okay.
I'm going to
It's
say
a lot of foot traffic.
Lots
right
of
outside of, okay, let's say it's $2. I'm not doing this. This is not a consulting interview.
I'm going 120.
I'm going to go with 55.
a week.
120K a year.
120K.
I'm going to go with 55K a year.
55K. Okay. He was a character. He told me he sells his dollars for a fair marketable price, or he sells his waters for a fair marketable price of $1.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He makes $3,000 to $4,000 a week.
So what is that annualized?
A little less than $200,000 a year.
Oh,
That's a
I'm
point
in
for
the
me. I was
wrong
closer.
business.
Yeah.
damn.
Yeah.
We gotta look into this water thing.
I was talking to my husband,
crazy.
James, before this, and I was like, this was a couple of years ago. We filmed this like the first year we did this, so 2022. And I was like, I wonder if inflation has hit his prices.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet.
seriously. Okay. That's a fun first one.
All right.
Number two.
Hot dog stand owner.
Okay.
In Indianapolis. So definitely a lower cost of living than New York City. He was formerly incarcerated. He had the idea for his hot dog stand in jail, and he's been doing it for 5 years
And this is, again, annual.
annually.
I'm gonna use the water vendor as kind of a baseline here. I like hot dogs more than water, so I'm going 220K.
I think in Indianapolis versus the White House.
Yeah, you're maybe
White
not
House
getting as much
has
foot
way
traffic.
more
Damn.
foot traffic.
Yeah.
And it depends on where in Indianapolis. I'm going to say 70.
Between 50 to 100K.
Oh, okay. You
All right, I
win that
won
one. 1-1.
Yep.
Yeah, it was
Great.
definitely the cost of living.
We got to talk to this guy. Move the hot dog cart in front of the White House.
Yeah,
You'd
right?
be
Boom.
printing money.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, number 3. So flight attendant. This one's interesting. It's kind of like a pay switch. So she started at a rate and now she's at a different rate.
Yep.
Oh, I
So-
just saw this one.
I
this
think I watched this video.
Okay.
Oh, no.
It was an old
don't
video.
remember
So
it.
how long in her flight attendant career is she?
She's been in about 5 years.
Oh.
She
Okay.
recently switched airlines. When we interviewed her, she was in Chicago, but I don't think she was based in Chicago.
I feel like I saw one of your videos and they were making like 35K was their first like flight attendant gig, but they're 5 years in now. So and she's switched. I'm going 100.
If this is the one that I saw on the way to work today, I'm going to say she started at 70 and now she's at 27.
Started at 70, now she's at 25. Uh-huh. Great memory. Yeah, so the story goes, and what's really...
She went down.
Yeah.
She went down. So
Oh, no.
it actually points out a really terrible clause that a lot of airlines have, that they don't value seniority. Like it's not a thing. When you start at the company, regardless of how long you've been doing it at another airline, you start at 0 years of experience. So she was making 70K working 5 years at one airline. She didn't say what the story was, and it doesn't matter because it could have been mass layoffs. She could have been fired. It doesn't matter. She started at American Airlines making 25K.
That is
blows my mind.
one of the reasons why I remembered it is because I was like, how is that, first of all, legally,
Right.
but at all, how is that possible?
Yeah. Not only that, they don't get paid until the door closes and the brake releases. So when you see flight attendants at airports, they're not getting paid.
It seems wrong.
This is also like just to underscore the power of what you're doing. Like, I think it's just like this is blowing my mind. I'm like, wow, I had no idea, which is like ignorance on my part. This helps me understand. 2, I just feel like way more empathy too.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, like they're not even getting paid while they're away from home full time. If you are like yelling at a flight attendant on a plane, like we need to.
You suck.
Yeah, we need to do something about you. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So interesting. Okay, let's move on to number 4.
One of the comments was like, no wonder they have such a bad attitude. And I'm like, I would
What?
too.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Also, I don't think
they're
I've
the
ever
most
met
lovely people on the
flight
planet.
attendant with a
Same.
bad attitude. So
Agreed. All right. So number 4,
Okay.
an air traffic controller. So kind of the same airline, industry. Their job is to keep the skies safe and planes separated. So an incredibly important job. To get into the role, you need about 3 years of general work experience. He's been doing it about 5. He works 48 to 50 hours a week. How much does he make in Arlington, Virginia?
I'm going 220K.
I was about to say, I hope that they're making at least 175.
Base pay is 175, but last year he made 210. With
Ooh.
Okay,
I'll
point for
split.
each of
That's
us.
point for
Okay,
each. Point
2
for
to
each.
2.
I will say though that this is ranked as one of the most stressful jobs,
Yeah.
Yep.
and trigger warning, it also has one of the highest suicide rates.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if we need to blur that out.
No, that's, yeah. I think I mean, it's very, very stressful and very important. And so, however much they're making, it's not enough.
The theme I'm getting here is like any job involving any airplanes or airports is really freaking hard.
Yeah.
Sadly, the pay doesn't show for
Yeah.
everyone,
Yeah.
though. This blows my mind because we look at this and we're like, that's such an important job. He's keeping people alive. But then we see nurses making less than 50K,
course,
and I'm
yeah.
like, what? That makes sense. All right, the last one for you is an IBEW union electrician. Her formal title actually is a journeyman wireman, which means she's been doing it over 5 years. She has a college degree. She studied psychology, but she switched into this, so she left her career years into it. She works for Boston Local 103
Ooh.
This
Okay.
is in Boston.
in Boston.
I will say journeyman wireman. She has the coolest job title of all time.
is.
Let's put that on the table. Boston, high cost of living, 5 years in a union.
It feels like a union town, one could say.
That's a union town up there.
Big time.
I'm going 250K.
Wow.
Too high?
I would say 150.
I didn't do the annual, but
Okay.
I can tell you her first year in as, first year trainee, but I think it's called a apprentice. She made $17 an hour base pay, so not total package. Now she makes $63 an hour base pay, and her total package is $120 an hour, which is
Wow.
around, I'd say, probably a little less than 200K maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
All right, moving to Boston. Here we go.
Yeah.
And she loved her job too.
Yeah. Okay. This is. I was like not really close on most of them, which again is just proving the point of like how interesting and important
Yeah.
this work is. Love that. Thank you for leading that game.
So fun. I get to play it live.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so great.
So, Hannah, I've loved this conversation, and clearly the work you're doing is super important. If people are listening to this podcast, which I hope they are, where do they go to find more information from you? Like, where do they find you on the internet, websites? What would you hope they go to help elevate their career?
Yeah, so if you just want to watch our videos, quick content consumption, you can follow us on Salary Transparent Street at Salary Transparent Street on all channels. We're on every single platform. Like my parents don't have TikTok or anything, so I had to get the YouTubes and all the Facebooks and stuff. So we're everywhere. But if you need help elevating your career, learning and earning more, salarytransparentstreet.com. We have a free market research guide, a free salary negotiation guide, an anonymous salary database, and we just launched a job board. So if you're looking
Wow.
for transparent jobs, only transparent with solid ranges, not that 0 to 2 million. Yes, come to salarytransparentstreet.com.
Okay, I love that. Also, learn and earn. Whoever came up with that slogan,
me. That's
yeah,
good.
yeah,
That's great.
incredible.
Good marketing right there.
What was I doing in data? I don't know. I was built for marketing.
I love it. Should we roll the credits?
I think we should.
Our producer is Michaela Heck.
Our technical director is Uchenna Ogu.
Kristen Parisi is a Morning Brew HR reporter.
And our chief content officer is Devin Emery.
This show is a production of Morning Brew.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Go learn and earn, everyone.
Thanks.